Hitting on values at the running back position is key to winning your fantasy football leagues. We reveal our favorite running backs to target through different rounds of the 2025 fantasy football drafts on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst for NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right, today we're going to go through our favorite running backs to target throughout the fantasy drafts for this upcoming season. Yesterday, we did this for the quarterback position. We're going to do it for running backs today, wide receivers tomorrow, and tight ends on Friday. And Vinny, let's start off right at the bat. We're going to skip the guys right at the top of the draft because if you don't have one of the top 5 picks of the draft, top 6, you're probably not going to get them. So that's Bijan Robinson and Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs. We'll also just keep out Ashton Jeanty and Derrick Henry, who are going easily in the first round. Who would be your favorite, second tier running back to target this year?
Yeah, I'm really looking at Jonathan Taylor more and more. I've expected a big season out of him with Shane Steichen. We haven't seen it quite yet in Indianapolis, but there's been a lot of other factors. They've had some quarterback uncertainty, trying to figure out the offense and what direction and identity they want to take with it. Well, I think a couple things that are making me feel better about it is I don't know how much they believe in Anthony Richardson, which it sounds weird, right? If you have a bad quarterback situation, but here's the deal. If Daniel Jones starts, I actually think it's good for Jonathan Taylor, and it's actually not bad either. If Richardson starts, Jones might give him a little bit more opportunity because all the rushing won't go away necessarily. Jones, we know, is pretty mobile. We have Richardson, however, is more of a takeoff and run type of guy. So either way, these quarterbacks are going to have to lean on Jonathan Taylor quite a bit, and really Steichen will need to as well as the workhorse back. And he's been solid. He kind of had that issue with the contract and the injury, and then he kind of came back solidly last year, but not the spectacular Jonathan Taylor we had just a few years ago, finishing as the RB1 overall. The board, a lot of it is going to come down to can he break through for the 15 to 20 touchdowns to really cash in on his value, or is he going to be around 10 to 12 that could limit it here? And the other factor that's been in play for Jonathan Taylor, he hasn't caught a lot of passes over the course of career, but that doesn't say he can't catch passes, right? And really, what gives me some hope this year is their backup right now is former Bears backup, Khalil Herbert. And Herbert actually hasn't shown a lot in the receiving game. We kind of thought he was a change of pace dude there in Chicago, but really didn't do a lot in the passing game. So they're going to have to lean on Jonathan Taylor. And we look at the running quarterbacks, I think there'll be fewer checkdowns, maybe if Richardson's there. But they might be saying, hey, if you want to save your job, you're going to have to check down a little bit, not look for the big play downfield or run it radically. And then we know Daniel Jones is more than happy to take the checkdowns that are in front of him and go in that direction. So however you look at it, I think his receiving volume is going to go up. I think his rushing opportunities for those high leverage chances with yards and touchdowns are going to go up. So I really like Jonathan Taylor, maybe flying under the radar a bit. I mean, I think partly is because he had that big season, then he's let down since then, not quite reached that same level, but not everything is his fault, and I do like him. Again, he's in a really good situation to dominate touches as well because, again, I'm not totally having a lot of faith in Herbert kind of being more than just a backup on certain downs here for Indianapolis.
I do think that Jonathan Taylor is a great value this year. And last year, there was that middle of the season where he really struggled to get the touchdowns, right? But that's never been an issue in his career. He just went through a bad drought, but we saw that fixed towards the end of the season. Now, do we think the Colts offense is going to be great this year? No, but I do think that Jonathan Taylor is going to get an insane amount of volume. He's going to get over 300 touches. Last year, he had the 5th most carries in the NFL despite missing 3 games. He had 303 carries in 14 games, while Saquon Barkley, who got fed nonstop, had 345 in 16 games. Jonathan Taylor is going to be a really good value this year. It comes down to the targets, right? And the touchdown opportunities, but he's going to get all the touchdown opportunities that are there. And I do think if Daniel Jones wins the job, then we're safer on Jonathan Taylor's running, targets, because Jones has targeted a running back on 18% of his pass attempts over the last 3 years. That's above average rate actually for quarterbacks, while Richardson's at 9%. I just think Richardson just takes off and runs a little bit more. So I do like Jonathan Taylor heading into next year, but I like this guy a little bit better, and he's actually going after Jonathan Taylor on average. Actually, they're going right next to each other, right near each other. It's Christian McCaffrey, and this is the thing with Christian McCaffrey. Right now, he's ranked as running back 7, and if he stays healthy, right, that's the whole thing, is if he stays healthy, he's probably going to be the running back 1 or 2 on the season. And when I'm taking a running back in the top of the second round or late first, like, I want that ability. And what Christian McCaffrey offers is very different than what really any other running back offers. So his top seasons at 27.3 fantasy points per game, 25.8, even his 22.4 point game season in 2023 were all higher by over 1.5 points per game than Saquon Barkley's year last year, which was absolutely fantastic year. But what Christian McCaffrey offers is just absurd fantasy points, right? And the 49ers have such an easy schedule this upcoming year. They have the easiest schedule in the NFL in terms of where teams ended up last year. And I feel like we think Christian McCaffrey is older than he is. He just turned 29 years old. I do think he still has at least one more good year in him. They traded away Jordan Mason, and Kyle Shanahan is really just all about that workhorse back. We know he's going to get a ton of targets, especially if Brandon Ayuk misses a good chunk of time and they got rid of Deebo Samuel. He's going to get all the rushing touchdown opportunities. He only played 2 full games with Brock Purdy last year. He had over 100 scrimmage yards in both of those games. I'm not worried about his production. The only worry is his health, but I'm willing to take the chance on that at running back. Since he's not going as a 101 like he normally is, I'm willing to take the shot on that at running back 7 value.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, we talked about Christian McCaffrey. It was the show that, Michelle, you were off for, but I talked a little bit about his ADP. His ADP is actually 4 and 5, so he's going very aggressively, a few spots out of that. So everyone's kind of feeling what you are, Michelle, is like, how can I let Christian McCaffrey fall all the way to 7? Now, the people that are ahead of him that you look at, we kind of look at the big 3 that I mentioned. That's Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley. And then you have to decide Derrick Henry, Devin Achane, Josh Jacobs. And then you get to where we're looking at right now, Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey. So that's where you're looking at here. Ashton Genty, throw him in the mix as well. So that's that group that you're looking at, weighing where you want to take McCaffrey in relation to them. And look, there's an argument to be made that Robinson, Gibbs, even Genty and Barkley are all fine and are going to be better values than McCaffrey. But as he mentioned, he could outscore all of them. So I think the biggest thing is the risk reward is going to be there. There's going to be some high risk involved with that. I would make sure that we hedge our bets, not just with the 49ers backup situation, but with another back early in a flex spot with some upside, maybe one of the rookies that you're going to look at. So you can hedge your bets a little bit and have an option should McCaffrey have some more injury time or miss time during the season, right? He could just be out for a few games here and there just because of attrition, his age and wear and all that. So if you're prepared for it and you have a contingency, I think it's fine to go after McCaffrey that early. Just be wary that it's pretty much a boomer bust, swing for the fence, strikeout or home run pick. That's what you're going to get from it. The other backs maybe don't feel exactly that same way, especially when you look at Barkley and his consistency with the touches, Derrick Henry, and Genty having the fresh legs, and Josh Jacobs being pretty steady. So these are all different variables that they have, but no one has a higher ceiling when we've seen it than McCaffrey right now. Maybe Barkley is the only one there. So it'll be interesting. I think you're going to see him probably go higher than wherever his consensus expert ranking is. If we move it up to like 5, I think it's going to be more in line of what kind of pick you're going to have to invest to get him as an RB1.
Yeah, I think I would much prefer Christian McCaffrey over Derrick Henry. They're both
Mhm,
aging. There's no reason to think that Derrick Henry is completely safe with health.
mhm.
I know he has been a much more healthier throughout his career than CMC, but I mean, we have now seen one, two, three, four seasons from Christian McCaffrey that had a higher average scoring than what Derrick Henry did last year with scoring 1 gazillion touchdowns. So unless you think Henry's going to put up the same exact amount of touchdowns, which he can in that Ravens offense, and stay completely healthy, I'm picking Christian McCaffrey over him. Really, Bijan Robinson and maybe Barkley and Gibbs are the only guys that I'm like, I need to take over
Mhm.
Christian McCaffrey, and I feel safe about that. But we have a lot of other running backs that we're targeting in this draft that are harder decisions to make than these top guys. So we'll get to that right after we hear from one of our sponsors.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Summer sports in full swing. This is a good time to get in on the action because baseball All-Star break is here. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, which we have a big event, the Open Championship out there across the pond, or high-stakes soccer action, it's getting a little heated here all over the world. FanDuel is the best way to make the game even more exciting for you. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more interesting and thrilling for you? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. You can be in the air conditioning watching these games and watching your bets in play there. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and FanDuel makes it even easier to track regular season game and make them must-watch events for you. You can track your favorite matchups, and the app is going to keep it fresh for you with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bet if your first wins. That's a great deal here, especially with a clean break going to the second half of the MLB season. Just open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, FanDuel, get in on the action now for your summer sports. All right, Michelle, let's get into some running backs deeper down the rankings. These are guys more in that RB2 range, right? When we get out of the top 15, 16 and falling into the top 25. So let's start with your guy that you're banging the table for, that you're targeting in a lot of leagues this season at running back.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised that Chase Brown is not ranked higher. I really thought he would have been super, super hyped after the way he ended last year,
Mhm.
and he's sitting there at running back 12, which I just think is a really, really great value, and it's a very, very fair value because you look at the games, the guys right behind him, and Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker and Chuba Hubbard. There is James Cook and Alvin Kamara, who I like a lot too, but Chase Brown is just well above them. I think he kind of just like breaks that tier. So when I'm looking at Chase Brown, who can easily be a top 6, top 8 running back, I'm loving his value at running back 12. People are going to look at his average from last year and say, okay, he was a running back 16 on average. So he's going up this year. So that should be fair to him. But I don't think we should include the first half of the season when he was splitting work with Zach Moss because he's not going to be doing that this year. I don't really think he has really anyone to split work with. Now Moss is still on the team and maybe he's healthy, but I do think Chase Brown proved like I was wrong on Chase Brown. I said he couldn't handle a big workload. He can. I think he showed it in the second half of the year. He has to prove it for a full year. He has to prove it for longevity. But I think for one more season, he can hold on to this job. And from weeks 9 through 18, once Moss was out and he took over this backfield, he averaged nearly 24 touches per game during that span. That was only behind Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, and Bijan Robinson. He averaged 18.3 fantasy points per game during that span in half PPR. Now that in just that span, it was 5th among running backs, but it also would have put him tied for 4th on the season with those points per game with Bijan Robinson. I think he's going to get so much work and it's not just rushing. He might not get, 300 carries. They're not going to get close to that, but he is going to get pretty much all the carries on this team. And then Joe Burrow likes to check it down to his running backs a lot. And he's going to be on the field a ton. And he's going to be on one of the best offenses in the league while we don't actually think the Bengals defense has gotten much better. So if we think they're going to have to score a ton of points, yes, a lot of them are going to go to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow's going to, get his. But so is Chase Brown, just like he did in the second half of last year. And I would actually be shocked if Chase Brown doesn't finish top 8 and he's going as running back 12. So I think he is a fantastic value this year.
Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of Austin Eckler, and he reminds me also of Devin Achan, where he came on and took over a job where there was a veteran there. And I think the question is the durability. Can he hold up? And he's proved he can, because he had to take on a bigger workload, much bigger than we thought when Zach Moss wasn't even available to the Bengals. So it'll be interesting to see how his role expands. I think this team, will be more aggressive passing this year, because they know probably not going to get away with pounding the ball and winning some games that way. So the style of the offense probably favors Chase Brown a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know how aggressive you want to be with him, because I don't know if there's too much more to go, right? I mean, you're going from 16 to 12. That's already a big jump on where you're looking at him. So he is an RB1, however you look at it. And then the question becomes, do you want to trust him over some of these other guys that we've been talking about, or like Jacobs and Taylor come into the conversation? Do you like him a little bit more? But I think in where you're getting him, I think it's a really good spot here, because, again, he should touch the ball more than any other Bengals back by far. So he's in a good position. I think, again, there's some doubts just to see if he can do it again and see what's up with his volume. So I think that's what creeps in. And maybe the Bengals, again, even though they were a very good fantasy team last year, maybe some of the reality stuff is creeping into Chase Brown, maybe not getting a further bump from RB12. Now, mine's a little riskier. I'm going to admit it right away, but I'm taking him a little bit later. And there's a tier of running backs. It's actually right after Chase Brown that if you don't enter that tier, so this is a good thing, good practice to target tiers and look for where the entry points are. If I can't get Chase Brown, then I'm going to go and say, Chuba Hubbard. I don't like that situation all that much. With now Rico Dowdle in that mix, are they the same back? Then you look at James Conner. Is this the year that finally things break down? Joe Mixon has a little less appeal with Nick Chubb there. And then you have Dave Montgomery, who's still fighting, but a lot of touchdown dependency there for his big numbers with Jahmyr Gibbs. When does that start to drop off here for Montgomery? Now, I'm not saying these guys are not draftable or worthy picks there, but Omarion Hampton, the rookie for the Chargers, really has a lot of things I'm starting to like more and more. I know they have Najee Harris, but again, we've talked about Harris only being on a one-year deal here, and this type of back profiles to having big fantasy seasons. We've just seen it. When you're such a dynamic pass catcher, I think Harris is pretty much going to lose that role. I mean, they didn't really trust him anymore in Pittsburgh with the Jalen Warren change of pace situation. So Hampton is also a back that can finish in the red zone, handle that early down work, and power through. So I think maybe you have to also look at it this way. Sometimes a team will sign a back because they're so easy to get in free agency and then see what happens, right? Maybe they weren't expecting necessarily that Hampton was going to fall to them, but now they've got a solid backup because Harris is pretty durable, and we know that. So maybe they want to see what they have in Hampton, have his role slightly expand. So it may not be exploding right away for you with Hampton, but I could see him really taking over, much like Chase Brown in the second half of the season if something starts to break down with Najee Harris. I mean, he's been extremely durable, but that doesn't mean he hasn't had injury issues, right? He's played through some knee and ankle stuff, so maybe it catches up to him a little bit with that volume in Pittsburgh. But regardless, right now, I know Hampton is the better talent, right? I mean, Najee Harris has had a chance to prove it in a first-round pick. Hampton was up there in the conversation with Ashton Jeanty. So he's special. It reminds me a lot, again, of the Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs situation where you have Jeanty, that's great, but Hampton, to me, the talent and the skill set weren't that far behind. Really, the only question is how much does Harris factor in? Because you look at the offense with Jim Harbaugh, it's going to be great for him in that sense. I think he reminds me more of what you had with J.K. Dobbins in this mix last year and Gus Edwards. So that's also helpful with the way Dobbins produced. So I'm really excited about Omarion Hampton. Look, Harris, I might take a little bit of an insurance, like maybe early in the year, but Hampton is a guy I want to target in all leagues just because, again, Jeanty, people are going to overpay, get him, but Hampton is the rookie I'm going to target at this stage in the 20s.
And I think that's fair, right? I do like Najee Harris. I think he's underrated. And I do think that rookies get overrated over veterans.
Yeah,
I think
that's
there's a
me.
couple things working. Yeah, I think there's a couple things working towards Amarian Hampton's value here. It's that Najee Harris has struggled as a rusher in the NFL. He looks like when you're watching him, he looks better than his stats say. Like I watch every single Steelers game. I'm a Steelers fan. And at the end of the game, I'm like, how is that all he ended with? Like he's running so hard, he looks good. And I don't know if that's on the team or him, but I mean, in his career, he does only average 3.9 yards per carry. That's second fewest among 23 running backs with at least 600 carries since 2021. The only guy that's ever fewer was Ezekiel Elliott during that time, which we know he's fallen off. I do think Harris is underrated, but then at the same time, when he gets this eye injury on 4th of July firework accident, and we don't really have so much information on it, his agent has come out to say he's going to be okay for the start of the season. But the fact that maybe Hampton will get this work at the start of training camp without Najee Harris there, I do think is huge for him. And, we were sitting here loving. I mean, we weren't doing this podcast together, but I'm sure you're sitting here loving Najee Harris's talent coming out of school too. So that's why I don't love to put too much on rookies. But I agree. He's in a good situation. I think he's going to get a good opportunity. So I do not mind his cost whatsoever. We're going to get to one more running back each that we really like their value of. A guy that you can get later on and drafts. Mine is a little bit later than yours. Mine is not a sexy pick. Yours is apparently just hating on Najee because it's the guy that's taking over Najee Harris's role. But we'll get to that to end today's show right after a quick break. I want to remind everyone that the Locked On NFL Top 100 has been released on Locked On Sports Today. The NFL Top 100 was voted on by the NFL hosts of Locked On, and there are some stunners. Don't miss where your favorite players were ranked. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's finish up today's show with two more of our favorite values at running back. And since we're already talking about, Najee Harris and his teammate now in Amarian Hampton and what we think about that, you might as well get into your favorite later tier running back because he is now taking over Najee Harris's job in Pittsburgh. Tell me why you like him so much, Vinny.
Yeah, and I do have a problem with rookies. It's true. Like I can't quit rookies. I'm always looking for the rookie stars. I mean, everyone knows it in any league you play in with me, and the show is no different. But I also like upside players, and that's why I like rookies. And you look at the guy. I mean, Michelle kind of hinted who it is. It's Caleb Johnson taking over here as the early down / power back with Jalen Warren. Warren's going a few spots later, but right now, Caleb Johnson is going as RB27, I believe. Warren is 30-31 in that range. So people are still trying to figure out how the Steelers' backfield is going to play out. But to me, I think it wasn't anything against Najee Harris. I think he wasn't quite a fit for what they were trying to do. And we don't know exactly Arthur Smith's plan. I mean, we saw him kind of bungle things a little bit early with Bijan Robinson, maybe leading to him needing to leave, right? That he didn't give him enough touches. So maybe does he overcorrect himself a little bit and say, I got to do this? Does Mike Tomlin behind the scenes say, hey, we want to be a power running team and help our defense? I mean, they just got Jalen Ramsey and a little bit of tight end help. So do they want to sit back and get those two tight ends in there and pound it a little bit, take pressure off Aaron Rodgers? I think that is the case here. And again, Caleb Johnson, known for being a power runner at Iowa, between the tackles, he was very good, but that didn't make him a nothing in the passing game. And he doesn't have to do all that much there with Warren. So that pressure will be off, but he's a good finisher. He can really help this team. I'm just hoping that the Steelers offense in general, just a lot of changes, right? With Rodgers and DK Metcalf and the two tight ends, and then Johnson replacing Harris. So many things are just new in the Steelers offense that all the personnel kind of reboot here for Arthur Smith are going to add up to some good things here. And really, I just look at Harris. I don't think he's a guy that could do more than what his offensive line was giving him. Maybe he had lost some explosiveness because he had played hurt, I think. I mean, he didn't miss time, but I think he did play through a lot of injuries where some people may not have and gotten the rest, and maybe to his detriment a little bit. But here comes Johnson with fresh legs here to take over. Again, the Steelers have to lean on the run. Looks like their defense is going to be outstanding. I don't think they can rely a lot on Aaron Rodgers here to sit back and throw it, not just because it is DK Metcalf as their top receiver, but that's not what they want to do. So I like having the two tight ends. Like the fact that they can pound it a little bit. Arthur Smith does like using 12 personnel. He likes to run the ball first. That's what Tomlin prefers. So I think all this lines up here with Caleb Johnson. I don't think there's anything against Harris. I just look at just his upside with Johnson. They had to go with it. Tony Pollard, Isaiah Pacheco, Warren, another guy, and then there's a couple other rookies. Quinshon Judkins, we'll see what happens with him. Travion Henderson, and look at Tyron Tracy, Brian Robinson Jr. These are the guys that are around Caleb Johnson. Caleb Johnson sounds a lot more appealing than that.
He does. And I'm with you. I do like Caleb Johnson a lot. I'm excited to see what he can do. You know, we talk about Najee Harris, and he's led the league in touches since entering the NFL. And there's something about the Steelers where every time people really, really want the backup to be a thing, right? It was that way with, I'm trying to think, Jalen Samuel, I think that was his name.
Yeah.
I can't remember at this point because he was so pointless. There's been so many of these guys where I've had to kind of, tell people that's not going to happen. And I think people really are going to want the Jaylen Warren thing to happen. Jaylen Warren's a fine change of pace guy. He is, but he's not going to be a workhorse guy. I think this is all going to go to Caleb Johnson to try to take over this backfield. They're going to give him a ton of touches, and it comes down to if he can have better vision than Najee Harris, and that's really what it comes. That's what happens, and if he'll have more scoring opportunities as well, because Najee Harris over the last couple of years has had very few scoring opportunities with how bad the quarterback situation in this offense has been. So if Aaron Rodgers can make this offense better and they can score more, then Caleb Johnson's going to be a really, really great value. My guy is not a sexy name like your rookie. Not at all. No one wants him. And it's Travis Etienne, running back 33 in consensus rankings, and far drop from where he was going last year. And I get it, right? I mean, I try to find any positives of last year, and it's really, really hard. There's not many. I think the one positive I can give is that it didn't start off all too terrible before his injury in week 6. I mean, it wasn't great. 10.9 points, 13.3, 10.5, 6.59, and then he got injured and missed a couple games, and then it just went straight to terrible. You could not utilize him whatsoever after suffering the ankle hamstring injury in week 6. But he's still super young. We are 1 year removed from this dude being the running back 3 overall. And it's not like saying like, oh, well, Raheem Mostert was that a couple years ago. Raheem Mostert also did it when he was 30-something years old. Etienne's still 26. He's still the lead back on his team. He now gets a new offensive coordinator, new coaching staff altogether. And watching him last year, it truly did look like he just did not want to play football. Now, maybe that's still how it's going to be, but I do think there's going to be a rejuvenation to this offense. They went offensive coordinator for their head coaching job, right? Like an offensive-minded guy in Liam Cohen. And I know a lot of people want to compare Travis Etienne to Rachaad White. I actually am comparing him more to the Bucky Irving, and I'm comparing Tank Bigsby to Rachaad White. Like, Tank Bigsby is clearly just a guy. He's just a guy. He cannot do anything special. He just runs really, really hard, and that's all he has going for him. And that's what I'm thinking of. And here, like, Etienne actually has the burst and the mentality to like break off massive plays and be great in the receiving game. We've seen this from him already, again, as he was already the running back 3. He put up over 1,400 scrimmage yards in each of his first 2 seasons playing in the NFL. I don't think that just goes away in 1 year. I think last year was a disaster for the Jaguars. I'm not willing to say I'm just going to completely throw him away. Running back 33, there is no risk because it's not even just running back 33. It's also he's going 92 off the board. He's going after guys like Jaylen Warren, again, who I don't think is going to do much. Evan Ingram, Jacoby Myers, Khalil Shakir, Tyrone Tracy. That's too far to drive him down. Am I 100% certain Etienne's going to bounce back? No. But do I think there's a solid chance he can and bounce back to top 15 guy? Yes, as a starting running back for the Jaguars, who we expect to be a pretty solid offense this year. So I just think his value is way too good to ignore.
Yeah, I think the Jaguars offense, I do know this. I don't know exactly how things are going to play out in the backfield yet. And maybe we'll get a little bit more clarity as we go to training camp and preseason and get a hint at the reps and the split and all that. But you do look at maybe we're flipping it, as Michelle said. I mean, you're looking at him as Rachaad White, but why would we look at him as Rachaad White? He hasn't really manifested himself as the receiver that he was at Clemson with Trevor Lawrence that everyone thought was going to happen. It's kind of the same thing that happened to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's like, this guy was a big-time pass catcher. Why is he not involved? Well, the team, I guess, looked at it differently. Maybe it's a Doug Peterson thing and what he was looking at, and now you have a different perspective on him. That's always good for a player that was struggling. We'll see. Tank Bigsby has not been totally durable. He has not been a guy that's shown a lot of versatility. He's had some explosive runs and be able to finish drives, but that's about it. There's been flashes, nothing like substantial there from Tank Bigsby yet. So don't totally write off Travis Etienne. Look, I think he came into me overall. I mean, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire had that one burst in the college football playoff run, but to me, Etienne was a good back for a long time. So he's got a lot of talent. And I don't think he just drops off from there. I think his usage has been bad. He's battled some injuries, some fickleness from the coaching staff. So I think all that can be erased. And if that's the case, and they give him a fresh start in the Liam Cohen offense, it's going to be rather fruitful. I think that's all good. So it's a good shout to Etienne where we're just forgetting about him. And sometimes the disappointing guys from the past, I mean, you just have to blow up everything, I think, with Jacksonville. I think there's just a lot of good vibes with this team, especially offensively. So I want to ride into that with Etienne for sure.
Yeah, and we have to think about how bad their run blocking was last year as a team, 7th worst in the NFL, according to PFF. They've made some changes, specifically with Robert Hainsley in center, who was a really good run blocker for the Buccaneers last year, by the way, with Liam Cohen. But, I mean, remember 2 years ago in 2023, the Buccaneers were one of the worst run games in the league, and their run block grade went from 29th ranked to 15th ranked from just one season, and the difference was Liam Cohen's offense. I think a system can fix that without a huge change of talent on the line. So that's the last thing I have to say about Travis Etienne. I didn't know I was going to be, pounding the tables for him this offseason, but surprises happen. That is going to be it for today's episode. We're going to be doing the same thing with wide receivers tomorrow, talking about our top 6 favorite values throughout the draft. And then we'll do tight ends on Friday. Don't miss those episodes. We'll talk to you then. Bye, y'all.